What's going on, guys? It's Sam, and in this video I'm going to show you how to stabilize your shaky footage. We're going to be using an amazing effect Premiere has built in called Warp Stabilizer to make everyone think that you're actually amazing at filming.
That's good.
Alright guys, so let's go ahead and dive in. So right now I've got 6 clips in my timeline. I labeled them different colors just for fun. You can just right click them and go to label and change the color here. But they all individually have their own level of shakiness. What I mean is, some we want to make as still as possible and make it so that you can't even tell that the camera was shaking. Some we want to still keep like the movement feel of like it's still being handheld so that it doesn't really make people think it's super professional. Usually when videos have a little bit of shakiness but it's kind of smooth, it really helps create the human feel, which is actually easier to watch on most videos. That's why in some movies you'll see that the camera is kind of shaky even though they're really up close and personal on someone's like reaction shot. And if it's like a dramatic tone, you could still kind of see the camera moving a little bit, and it's just to make it seem like you're actually there, because you know we're not always standing still. You don't want everything on a tripod because then things kind of look stale and static. So having that handheld feel is important, but we don't want too much of that handheld feel, and so that's why we use Warp Stabilizer, which is an amazing effect in Premiere to help us smooth out our shakiness. So let's go ahead and add it to the first one. Well, we'll go ahead and play through these videos and I'll show you the shakiness to it. So this guy, it's just a little shaky. If I made it smooth, like as smooth as possible, it would be perfect. This one as well, just a little bouncy. If I want to put that into like a cinematic like montage of like nature, I would want it to be smoother. And same with this guy. Now this shot is very shaky because you know I'm walking uphill, but I wanna smooth it out because it jerks too quickly back and forth. And then this one is just a nice cinematic shot, but it bounces a little too much, so I want to make it smoother. And then this guy is one of my favorite shots that I've ever taken. And yeah, see, you can see a few jerks in there as I'm taking steps. So I want to be able to remove those and then make it a very like smooth shot, but still seem like it's handheld because it's got to be handheld. And this is just like a nice shot of the leaves in the water. But when I bring it up here, it starts getting shaky because I'm like balancing by the water. So I want to smooth that out. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start applying the Warp Stabilizer effect. Now, it's a heavy effect, and it uses a lot of computer power. So when we throw it on there, it's going to take some time to load and analyze. So I'm going to go ahead and put it on our first clip. And right now it says Analyzing in background on that blue stripe there. So when we go into Effect Controls, we can see under Warp Stabilizer that it's giving us time remaining, 29 seconds, and then, you know, how many frames out of whatever it needs to do to get the job done. So we'll go ahead and wait for that. Okay, so just by dragging the effect onto the clip, it automatically analyzes. It's got its default settings under Warp Stabilizer because it's got all these things that you can tinker with. And usually the default setting is not perfect, at least for me, for what I'm trying to do with my video. So what I want to do is first, let's look at why it's not perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and play it. So it's nice and smooth right now. And then we'll flash past the sun, and it's got a few little awkward movements. I mean, they're not as noticeable in this one, but I think I want to add more of a human feel to it because when it bursts that sun, it kind of shakes a lot. You can see the ridges kind of move to the side here. I don't really want that jerk in there, so I'm going to click on it, and instead of having the smoothness be at 50%, I'm going to take it down to about 10 because I want to add more of the human feel to it, but I still want it to be smooth. So let's go ahead and play it and see how that looks. So it's a little bouncy, sun flashes, and it's still got the bounciness to it. I think that's a lot easier to watch and more realistic to watch because it feels more real. It doesn't feel like inauthentic, and that's really what people want out of their clips. Alright, so let's go ahead and throw it onto this next one. So I'll go ahead and drag that and let it load for us. Bam! Okay, it's done. So that took about a minute to stabilize a 12-second clip. So warp stabilizer is a pretty heavy effect, but that's what it is by default. So now we're going to go ahead and tinker the settings based on what we want. So when we look at the clip here, what we notice right away is that there's black lines that are on the top and bottom of the clip. And we don't want that, right? First, let's go ahead and watch the clip. Okay, so it's kind of warpy. It's kind of like zooming in and out. Yeah, it's like shifting. Okay, so that's not really what I want, especially when the camera goes back down. Okay, so to adjust this, I'm going to, the first step I'm going to do is, if I want to keep the same smoothness, I'm going to take a step to maybe make it warp a little bit less. Right now it's under subscape warp under the method of stabilization. Let's go ahead and change that to position, scale, and rotation. Now what that does is it only uses position, scale, and rotation to adjust the movement for you. Whereas warp will kind of like move things into one another to add its own like flavor to make it look like it's real, but it's too much, so I want to take it off. Let's go ahead and play it and see what position, scale, and rotation can do for us. Okay, so there's one little weird zoom there, there's another one there, but it's not as bad as the subscape warp. Now, I'm still not the biggest fan of the little zooms here and there. I think I'd rather make those more human-like, so I'm going to go ahead and bring that smoothness down to 10%. And when I do that, it's going to make it look like I have steady hands, but you know, I'm still human, I'll still move a little bit, but it's not distracting. So let's see. And the black bars are gone too. So there's a little zoom, but it's not as noticeable as before. And voila. I mean, I really like this. I think this is great. Because obviously someone is holding a camera and moving it, but it doesn't have jerks. Like, there's one little movement there, but it's not even a big deal. It's nice and smooth. And then we come back out and we see the rest of the canyon. So I think that shot is really nice. And all we did was bring the smoothness down to 10% and change the method to position, scale, and rotation instead of having it warp and try to like have it compute a way to make it look right. Because the computer's not always right. Usually it's your eyes. It's not, the computer doesn't know. So moving on to the next clip. This one's the more difficult one, so I'm going to go ahead and throw the stabilizer on there. Alright, so this one finally finished stabilizing after about 2 minutes. And it's probably because there was a ton of movement for the computer to analyze. So right now I'm looking at a very heavily cropped image that the computer tried to stabilize. So let's go ahead and play it. This is definitely what I don't want, but I see what you're trying to do there, computer. I just heavily disagree with what you think might look good, and you can't even see Rob's head. Okay, so let's go ahead and fix this one. So now this one, we know we definitely want the movement to it, the human feel to it. So we're gonna go ahead and our first step is gonna be changing the smoothness to 1%. And the reason why I chose 1% is because I feel like if I choose 10%, it's going to be a little too warpy. So if I do 1%, I mean, it's better than nothing. And I think 1%, if you compare and contrast 1% stabilized to not having the stabilizer at all, it's drastically better. And I'll show you what I mean. So here we got 1%, the cropping's gone, and let's see what it looks like. Alright, so I'm just walking through. Nothing looks warped. It's actually kind of interesting. Everything's kind of smooth. Rob over there, you can see him clearly. Yeah, okay. So that was all right. Now let's compare and contrast. So I'm gonna play it and turn the stabilizer on and off. Stabilizer on, stabilizer off. Jerky movements, stabilizer on. Smooth movements, stabilizer off. Ugh. Stabilizer on, smooth, Stabilizer off. Jerky on. Yeah, so it looks much better, even with 1% stabilization. And I feel like if we go higher than that, it's going to start warping. And so I'm already okay with this clip if I'm going to use it in my, montage of nature. Alright, so I just went ahead and stabilized these clips. I put the default stabilizer on them. I already don't like this clip. When you put it on by default, it warps too much. So what I'm going to do is, right away, I'm just going to set all of them to 1% stabilization. And I'm going to look at that and see if every clip looks much smoother than before. So let's go ahead and play it on 1%. There we go. You can't even tell that I was shaking. And in this one, yeah, there's no jerks. It's nice and smooth. It's keeping the focus on what we want to see, even with my footsteps. And then even up here, nothing gets warped. It looks nice, and it's not shaky. It's nice and smooth. Now this one too, we got the water. Nothing was shaky here, but it gets shaky up here. Let's see if it's smooth. That's a little better. I think this one could be a little better, but I could start really tweaking that one to maybe like 10%, maybe start using position, scale, and rotation and upping the smoothness, because Subscape Warp is probably the most powerful setting in the whole thing, because once you turn that to position, scale, and rotation and adjust the smoothness, then you can start seeing where most of the power is on the stabilizing of your clip. Alright guys, so that's basically how to make your camera operating ability look a lot less amateur, if it is, and make things just look a lot more smooth in motion, and make it so that people don't get distracted by your shaky movements. Be sure to leave a like, leave a comment if you have any questions, or if you want to see more on this. I can dive even deeper on specific kinds of videos that I would do this in, and be sure to subscribe as well. And let me know if you want to see more tutorials like this, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks.